Hi, and welcome to the episode of Walleye Chronicles. This episode is sponsored by the one, the only Lure Lipstick out of Davison, Michigan. If you ever fished the D and you've been to the dip net, you know Lure Lipstick. They are the original home of the log perch, and now the home of the greatest jerk shad known to man. So get out, get on lurelipstick.com, get yourself some plastics they're going to put fish in your boat. Hand-painted plastics, infused plastics, great plastics, great people. Go to lurelipstick.com and put more fish in the boat. Also along for the ride today, Superior Fishing Products. They're out of Arctic Mine, Michigan. They have a full line of rod holders, trees, tracks, and accessories for all your big water and small water trolling needs. And with a name like that, you know the quality is there. So check out superiorfishingproducts.com for all your trolling needs. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Walleye Chronicles. On this episode, Mr. Ben Gollon of Gollon Wholesale Live Bait. His family's producing live bait to the Midwest for over 100 years. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to get live bait to where it starts, to where you buy at the bait store. So sit back and enjoy Mr. Ben Gollon, everybody. One last thing before we get started. Please remember to like and follow wherever you're watching this. Make a comment. Those help as well. The likes and the follows really matter. I thank you for doing them. And remember, there's two things you can do every day to give somebody a good day. It's one, give them a big ass smile, and two, stick them fishing. So this week, I have a gentleman that we all don't know. No one really knows these guys, but we're going to talk to him about. Today, I have Mr. Ben Gollon of Gollon Brothers Wholesale Live Bait. I always want to know where live bait comes from. It doesn't just randomly show up at the bait store, so we're going to find out today. How's it going today, Ben?
Real good. It's as I said, May is a busy time of year for us.
So you guys have been in business, I believe, for over 100 years?
Yes, my family has been in the live fishing bait business well over 100 years. It's been in our blood. So we've my great grandfather started here in central Wisconsin after coming in from Poland, and in the late 1800s, and settled along the Wisconsin River and started selling minnows for fishing. And traditionally it was wild harvested minnows from the rivers of Wisconsin and sold to local bait shops in the Northwoods and central Wisconsin, and that went on for many decades. And I'm myself, we're really fourth generation, but we've already in fifth and sixth generations in the business, and we grow, raise, catch, produce minnows, and supply majority of the northern United States and into Canada.
Wow, I imagine regulations nowadays have to be crazy for you guys.
Yes, it is. There's a lot to do with regulations, health testing, you name it. And some states are better than others, but we've been able to manage.
So do you guys have different regulations you have to follow per each state then?
Oh yeah, definitely. Every state is different, and then we have national laws that come into effect. So there's a lot to it.
So as goes through, you guys have 13 minnow options, 7 worm and larvae options, and leeches. How do you guys procure all these baits?
Well,
do you grow a lot of them?
So when it comes to minnows, and that's probably what we probably start with, is majority of them are farm raised, but there's still a lot of wild harvested ones. Let's start with your fatheads. I mean, that's a big one for walleye fishing, and most of those are farm raised.
Okay.
And there's even some areas it's even like a hybrid aquaculture type of system where we're using natural ponds, small shallow freeze-out ponds, and the minnows are grown in those. And so it's kind of a wild spawning situation where we manage the ponds and then and harvest them regularly, so we have a constant supply. And that's one of the keys to keeping the bait shops going, is they need a supply every week.
I noticed on Google Maps, I checked you guys out. You guys have 14 ponds on site.
Yeah, on site here, but we have ponds all over the
Really?
state and all over the Midwest.
Wow. So you just start them in there and they kind of let them do their thing, and you guys just harvest them as you need them and kind of grade them out and put them back. Kind of how does that
More,
work for you?
more or less, yeah. So they're generally they're harvested from the different ponds, brought into our main facility here in Stevens Point, and then from there we size grade them, condition them, and from there they go out to the bait shops or other distributors.
Is there any that are wild caught yet, or no? Are we all?
Well, there is. One of the examples is the emerald shiner. A lot of times people call them lake shiners or Milwaukee shiners, but it's one of those things that are popular on the Wolf and Fox River and Green Bay for walleye run. That's a killer bait, and those are still wild harvested.
Wow,
There's
that's
just
great.
no good way of culturing, and we've tried. A lot of other people have tried, and you know what? You just go with it. I mean, hey, they're plentiful. It's a renewable resource. It's natural. It's tried and true. I mean, it works, and so we're one of the few operations that's still wild harvest.
Wow. So do you guys, when you wild harvest them, do you have to bring them back and kind of put them in your tanks to get them to make sure they're all good and ready to go out someplace else?
Well, there is a little bit more to the emerald shiner, and that's where it gets fun, and it's one of the things I really get into because it's a lost art, and we've mastered it, I think, at this point. But the shiners mostly come from the different rivers, a lot of them here in the state, Wisconsin River. But one of the things with the emerald shiner is it's listed as a susceptible species to a certain fish virus, and yet it's never been detected in any of our waters here. It's not really an issue, but by most state regulations, we have to do some extensive testing on them. So they get caught, harvested, trucked here. We have quarantine ponds that we hold them in while they're getting tested, and then it depends on how we're testing them. Up until just a few years ago, it took a 30-day test where the fish got sent to a laboratory. They did cultures, and it took 30 days to get the results. Now we can do it in under a week. There's some new, more modern testing, and
Wow.
then once they're certified, they're able to be sold.
Wow. And there's time limits on when not time limits, but as far as like certain things are available certain times a year. Is that just because it's easier to harvest them, or when they're used by us more, or kind of what's that look like when it's?
Both, and there again, talking with the emerald shiner in particular, it's more of a cold weather. It just lives better in the winter and spring, and once the waters get warm, they're not really that effective, and they don't live well for the fishermen.
Yeah.
But with the testing though, we've been testing here even before it was required, and we've never had a positive or bad result. But we still do it to ensure quality for everyone, and then nothing's being spread.
Awesome. Um, is a rosy red a goldfish?
No, the rosy red is just basically a color variation of a regular fathead. Like any other animal, you're going to have a albino or different colors. That naturally occurs. Well, you collect enough of them, crossbreed them, and that's how they come out.
Awesome. That's pretty crazy that just
Yeah.
actually happened.
That's and they're a great walleye bait. They're just not as popular as you'd think, and I think a little bit of that is a lot of bait shops would probably sell more of them, but they don't have the tank space to hold another species.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah,
You guys also make tanks too, correct?
we do. We make some a couple different style tanks. It's not a real big part of what we do, but there's just a lot of specialized things for live bait handling. Nobody makes it, so we've just found we have to make stuff ourselves.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So what's changed the most over your time in bait world?
Well, I've been doing this since I was old enough to carry a bucket. Um, I would say that the health testing is one of the biggest things that we've had to contend with and have changed. And things are more centralized. Um, our time to market's different. The supply chain is pretty crazy of what it takes to get all these different species and sizes of minnows into a bait shop.
Right. I suppose, and you guys ship basically the upper Midwest, everything from Wisconsin to the west, right? Through
We,
North Dakota.
we're probably from, I'd say, North Dakota to East Coast,
Wow.
but we don't go much south. We concentrate on the Great Lakes region.
Is that because obviously what's up here is what people are using in a way?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, for one, you just can't do everything, but we specialize in stuff for the cooler climates. And the guys down south and southern states, it's a different world, and we let them handle that themselves.
Oh, so you guys have a bunch of trucks. What does your trucks look like? How do minnows survive when you put them in the trucks and you take them out to the bait shops? How's that
Well,
process work?
we have everything from small delivery vans to tractor trailers, and the bait shops. We have smaller, medium duty size trucks, and they're set up with fish tanks that have oxygen supplying the water and keep them aerated. So we run most of our liquid oxygen bottles that, um, like the medical bottles you might see. We're running liquid oxygen that aerates them. We're running cold well water. Their tanks are insulated, so they stay at a constant temperature. And yeah, so our trucks will deliver to the bait shops, depending on the area and time of year, once, twice, 3 times a week. And
Wow.
not only are we selling the minnows, but we're selling the worms, leeches, all of the other items as well.
I suppose the spring's probably all around your busiest time. You're harvesting. To me, it's probably when minnows get used the most. It seems like, at least around my area.
Yeah. April, May, and until about June are our biggest minnow moving months. But winter can be pretty good too. I mean, if we get early ice, though, between Christmas and New Year's and into the first part of January, when guys are ice fishing, it can be very busy.
I didn't think about it that way.
And as far as that goes, I mean, you think about ice fishing, especially for walleyes, everybody uses minnows.
Yep.
Where summertime, you might be using leeches or worms or there's so many other things, or artificials.
I gotcha. So let's move on to worms and larvae. Tell me a little about the process of all that.
Well, worms, yeah, and that's most of your night crawlers, though, those all come out of Ontario. And it's just that's where they produce good night crawlers. They're picked off the fields just like you can do over here, but the whole infrastructure is there.
Okay.
People are set up to pick. There's coolers that hold them, and that's just the way it works.
So do you guys are those repackaged here in America? Or are they bought like by the pound, or how we get them is how they're shipped out of Canada?
So generally, we buy them in bulk from Ontario, and then they come here, and then here we pack, and we have a packing line that we cup them into 1 dozens, 2 dozens, 100 counts, whatever the shops might want.
Awesome.
And one of the things we often, most all the time, do is use a paper bedding. People just seem to like it. It doesn't make your boat as messy, doesn't get your fingers as dirty. That's always been a good selling point.
Right. I love me some paper bedding. When I open something up and got no paper bedding, I get a little crabby because then we have to go into the wash mode, right? Where you have to get some water
Mm-hmm.
for them and you got to clean them up a little bit. That way you don't get as dirty. Yeah, I love the paper bedding.
Yeah,
What about as far as like wax worms and spikes? Are those covered by you guys, or kind of how does that process work?
well, kind of the same thing. Waxworms. There's a number of different growers in the U.S. We have a really good one that we get from over in Minnesota, and he grows for us, and there keeps us supplied. That's another product that's hard to anticipate. It takes about 4 to 5 weeks to grow a waxworm, and they're always trying to have product available when people use them.
Yeah,
And we get early ice. Sometimes it's a little hard to get everybody filled up right away.
I suppose. Yeah.
So the waxworms are domestically produced. Your spikes, there are a few guys that raise them in the U.S., but Ours that we sell actually come out of the UK,
Really?
and they just do a really good job there. They're cheaper, and they live better. So we import them through England.
I assume that's a whole crazy process to get anything imported.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you got air freight can always be a problem, and import permits and such. But we're working with some good people, and it all gets handled.
Awesome. And leeches.
So leeches, we have a few that are trapped here in Wisconsin, but the majority of them do come out of Minnesota, northwestern Minnesota. They just have good leech lakes there, and that's where the majority of them are produced.
Wow, that
So
makes sense.
one of the things that we do here is we have a very special purpose-built facility that we hold the leeches in. So I'm able to get from all these different trappers, hold them, and get them purged, and have a good clean product for everyone.
Awesome. So if somebody's, when we're buying our bait, how should we take care of it if we're doing minnows? What's the proper way you think to take care of them when we get them home to keep them to last the longest?
Well, one thing I see is so often is people just don't have enough aeration. And there's some really good little, bucket aerators and cooler aerators. That's your main thing. The other part is keeping that water temperature fairly cool. Your sweet spot's going to be under 60 degrees, between 50 and 60. And then, if you're on city water, that city water's got chlorine and other chemicals, and that can be a problem. Now, there are chemicals you can use to treat that, to remove ammonia. They work okay, but you're best off with, some well water, or I guess some guys will even use river water or lake water when they're out fishing, and acclimate them to that. The other thing too I see way too often is people will buy minnows from the bait shop, and they throw them in their bucket and they shock them. The temperature is different, so you always want to make sure that your water temperature in your bait bucket is within, I like to say 5 degrees, but 6, 7 at least it would be your max between the bait shop and your bucket.
Wow, I didn't think about that. When we buy fish for our fish tank, we acclimate them all the time, right? We never thought about doing it with the minnows. How about the over the counter pills or little things you can buy to pop in there, the oxygenator things or little blue juice? Does any of that stuff really work, or is it just take care of your minnows and you'll be fine?
I think they'll help sometimes, but just acclimating them, having good water in your bucket, and keeping that aeration going, that's your key.
Are you tired of the same old plastic patterns and colors? Well, check out lurelipstick.com. You'll find the best hand-painted infused plastics on the market. And the best part, they're made right here in Michigan. New for this year, the Pro Swimmer and Jerk Shad model to go along with the world-famous Split Tail series. Lure Lipstick also has a wide variety of attractants in wax and liquids. And remember, they're the home of the famous perch jelly. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, Lure Lipstick. Get hit on. So as far as if you do see some discoloration in your minnows, should you kind of get those ones out of there? Or,
Yeah, well, obviously pick any dead ones out. A lot of guys will save their dead ones and freeze them. Definitely not a problem with that. But if you see any, get marked up or anything from handling, that's, honestly, that's probably the biggest culprit to minnow longevity, is the handling in in our transport at the bait shop. I mean, some places the guys are scooping around that tank, and every time that little net hits those minnows, you can knock some of their scales off, and it causes problems.
That makes sense. So I wonder then if do you think those new coolers, every time you pick them all up? You think that's an issue?
Yeah, I see a lot of different buckets and nets and little strainers and stuff, and they're kind of rough on them. Now, if you're using that minnow that day and you're gonna, it's gone, I mean, it's not a problem. But if you're wanting to keep those for a week, I really, just the old-fashioned bucket with an aerator and a small little dip net, that's your best bet.
Awesome. Have you guys ever dealt with willow cats?
Yes and no. Yeah, my brother was trying to raise them a few years ago just for fun. Um, no, that's one of those things that that's real focused on the Mississippi River. Guys use them over there, and they're difficult to raise. They're difficult to catch, and
Difficult
if
to
you ever get
handle.
stung, and if you ever get stung with one, you'll know why. And I did a long time ago, and it was one of the worst things I've ever had happen to me.
Right? One of those necessary evils when we go over there. It's like, oh, I get my willow cats, but I'm not really happy about having to use them. But I see they have a tool now that makes life a little easier.
Yeah, yeah. But there is I know one guy that's raising them over uh, towards Lacrosse somewhere, and he's doing a pretty good job with it.
So
But
is there like
that's
a formula to raising stuff? Is it kind of just a trial and error over a few years? I'd assume if you guys went from catching a lot of them to over the last 4 or 5 generations to now raising a lot of your minnows, is obviously that's kind of a niche that you guys figured out.
oh yeah, it's there's a lot of technique to it, and even when you do everything right, you still have to hope that the weather cooperates and Mother Nature does what she's supposed to do.
Oh.
You know, like
What's the
right now we're at the tail end of our sucker spawning season. So the suckers we raise and um, they spawn at a certain time of year, and but that can vary, a week or two sometimes. And um, some of the northern areas that we would get eggs from, they're a little bit behind.
oh, which puts everything behind. If you have the
Yeah.
eggs behind, then getting them to market is everything slower.
It really won't affect us down the road in the end of the season, but right now when you're planning to do something, and it it varies a few days every year.
I gotcha.
Mhm.
So what's your biggest enemy towards live bait? Is it plastics? Is it hard bait?
Plastics, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. That, and I was just talking to somebody earlier about this. I'm not saying yes or no, but all these new electronics and different sonars and stuff that people are out there using, and it's we're so suckers, big suckers for muskie fishing.
Hmm.
We used to sell a lot of them, and that's what everybody trolled. And now,
Um,
with live view, they're finding that muskie and plopping a lure on top of his head, and they don't need to troll with suckers. So we've seen our big suckers for muskie sales drop probably by 75% in the last couple of years.
wow. And that you got extra. I mean, that's growing a sucker that size. That's got to take some time. I mean, there's some.
Well, that's the thing with those big suckers, these 15 inchers. That's a 3-year-old fish that we have to grow out for 3 years and overwinter. And people see them in the stores, the shops are charging $7, $8, $9, $10, $12, 15 a piece for these big ones. Nobody's really making any money on them. I mean, there's so much into it that it's probably our lowest margin item we have. So to me, I mean, honestly, it's not that big of a deal to not have that, but it was always something that kept the stores going in October and into November. When everything else is dead, these bait shops got to still keep the lights on, and that was something that they could, you know, keep going.
I gotcha. But I suppose though, on the other side, the walleye world, the forward-facing sonar and guys like Max Wilson are bringing night crawlers back. I mean, holy mackerels, they're coming back strong.
Well, that you got a very good point there, and I know a lot of tournament fishermen that have I didn't hear anything from for a number of years, and now they're showing up and hey, you got this, you got that, because I need to get an edge on everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
Hmm.
crazy that, it was, I kind of thought night crawlers were basically dead. And then all of a sudden, a jig and a minnow, a jig and a crawler is back and in full force. And everybody's buying flats and getting, crawler buckets and new crawler bucket designs. And I think Max was wearing a fanny pack one tournament to keep him close to him. It's pretty crazy how fast we dive right back into our youth and just fishing with crawlers.
Yeah, yeah, that's and I guess I don't know that we've seen sales increase really on that, but it surely hasn't really dropped.
I gotcha. I would assume as night crawlers, your most constant sale, your most, you know, what you sell the most of, or consistency.
It depends on the area. I would say the southern part of Wisconsin into Illinois and um, even southern Michigan and Ohio. Night crawlers, in the summer, that's a big thing. And as the water temperatures rise, they become more popular. But still in the spring and into June, minnows are still a ruler.
Hmm. I went to guess that. What is there any weird areas that this kind of buy weird stuff? Like
Well, yeah, there's definitely these little niche markets. North woods of Wisconsin, they always like red-tailed chubs and creek chubs, where nobody else sells them hardly anywhere in the outside of those areas. Or northern Minnesota does too, I guess. Lake of the Woods, northern Minnesota for walleye. They love frozen emerald shiners, especially in the winter. But other areas they don't. And you have your areas that use a lot of leeches.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I noticed is we used to sell a lot more leeches for walleye fishing on the Winnebago chain, and that was it's not as much as it used to be. I think they've gone more to night crawlers.
Wow, that's and so you obviously grew up fishing, I would assume, correct?
Can you repeat that?
You did you grow up fishing? Do you have time?
Definitely grew up fishing. I don't fish much anymore. I just don't have the time when the fish are biting and conditions are good. We're busy.
Oh, I suppose. I mean, technically, you're fishing every day. I mean, you're catching fish for
Well,
fish.
you see fish every single day, so so you talk to people every day about fishing. So it's kind of like you already are.
Right? You're like, please, somebody ask me about the weather today. Please, God, someone say
Well,
that's your weather.
we always laugh when I go to the grocery store. Like, I hope I don't run into anybody I know because they're going to ask me where the fish are biting. And unfortunately, I don't always know. I might not know where they're actually biting around here. I can tell you some other area that they're doing well, but not always locally.
So, how's it, what's it like having a business that's been around your family for 100 years? I mean, it's kind of like farming, I guess in a way, but it's a little different. You're providing goods for our pastime. So what's that like, and having always being with your family, always working with your family? Has that been good, bad? Any fights around? I mean, thrown in the
Oh yeah,
tanks.
oh yeah, yeah. We throw down quite a bit. It gets pretty violent with my brothers. Well, we're still doing it. We have a lot of history behind us, and I think originally that drove us to succeed and carry things on. And our family business, it never was really that big. It was myself and my brother starting out in the 90s, kind of taking over from my uncle, and uh, that's what we really got bigger in size. And also, of course, the internet really helped too. That's why people outside of Wisconsin finding out that there was somebody that had product that they needed,
Hmm.
and we were able to expand a lot over the years.
Right, and you do not sell direct. You're only wholesale, correct?
Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, we have walk-ins,
Okay.
people that know us, friends. We'll guys that are heading north and they want to swing through and get some bulk stuff. Yeah, we don't turn anybody away, but
Okay.
we don't advertise it because really, if that's the bait shop's
Yep.
job, and we don't want to take away from that.
That's crazy. Is it,
And,
is there anything
and
that people ask you for that
uh,
you can't get?
well, yeah, red-tailed chubs. We can't never get enough of those. Um, Sometimes there's just certain things that are in low quantity, and even though we are pretty consistent, I don't think people realize how much work goes into providing those things when they need them.
Hmm.
Um, um, it seems like there's always a shortage of one thing that we're fighting with, and the fishing population, they don't know it, but we're working overtime to make one thing happen where everything else may be going well. We've got plenty of supply. Um, it's there's something that's always the fly in the ointment.
Wow. Do you know about how many bait shops you guys service, roughly?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you offhand. My brother could, but when you start looking at the bait shops that we supply here directly, where we sell directly to that bait shop, but there's probably tenfold that we supply through another distributor.
Oh,
And that's, when I have to give, encouragement talks to my people here, hey, we're supplying a lot of families, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bait shops across the United States that if we don't do our job, they don't get product to sell to the fishermen. They don't feed their family.
right.
And it's, that's a big responsibility.
Right. And then, yeah, especially, I mean, it seems like the bait shops have been not under attack, but it's been tough for them to kind of stay in business and finding other ways for them to stay in business. I noticed a lot of them are getting into custom painting, jigs and things like that and stuff. And what has been a difference that have you noticed in the bait shop industry of over the last, couple decades of?
Well, that's just it. The mom and pop bait shop is a rare thing these days. And as much as people would think, the cost of minnows and worms and leeches and all these things, it's gotten so high, but we're not getting rich. The bait shops aren't getting rich. We're working for our money, believe me. So you almost have to have another side thing going. That's why you see so many gas stations. It's something they can sell. But even over the decades, a lot of bait shops were taxidermy shops or hardware stores that had a bait section, or feed stores, farm stores, you name it. There used to be a lot of bars that used to have a tank out back, and they would sell minnows during the walleye run.
Yeah.
So we seen that happen, transition from back in 2000, we started getting all the big box stores come in, and a lot of them drove the small bait shops out. And I'm going to pick on Gander Mountain, perfect example. Gander Mountains came in all over the Midwest and drove the small little shops out. Mm. And then they went out of business, and there was nobody that could, these bait shops couldn't come back in.
Yeah.
So now what we're seeing to fill that void is the gas stations and the hardware stores.
Wow, that's crazy. Just how that's changed. I mean, even since I've been a kid, there was every town had at least one mom and pop shop, if not a couple. And now they're like you said, they're gone. And to see a new one open up I actually try to make it a point every time I see a new one. I try to stop in because. Try to patronize them because there's just not a lot of them. And if somebody, decides to give it a go nowadays and open one up, I mean, we gotta usually support them to help them get going.
Well, definitely. When we do get the opportunity to have a new store, we really, coach them and make sure they got everything right, and hope that they can work it right on their end so it's successful. We need that. And another thing is that's a point of contact for the fishermen. That's where they can go find out where the fish are biting, any new regulations, just what's going on in their area, where you're not always going to get that at some of the other places.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. You don't get it from a 16-year-old kid that's just making, pointing you the right direction. It's usually the bait shop people are there every day. They're talking every day to people, and like you said, it's a great place to get information.
Yeah, but not to say that some of the gas stations that that have minnow tanks with good managers and good employees, they actually, some can do a really good job.
Right. There is in my area here, there is a set of gas stations, 4 or 5 gas stations that have like little mini sport shops in them, and it's kind of actually super cool. And I'm like, and they have bait in there and a little bit of tackle, a little bit of ammunition and guns and whatever, and a little gun counter, and they seem to always be busy. They seem to always selling stuff.
Yeah, And I think they're all doing well, and it's enough it's a good profit thing for them. It's a good thing that to bring people in, and it just keeps the machine turning for them.
Awesome. So, what do you think's coming down the road for your industry? Good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, we were really nervous a number of years ago that we were just losing young people that didn't know how to fish. It was losing them every year to technology. Video games were taking over, and the pandemic really turned that around. Now we're kind of over that hump, and we don't know what the next couple of years are going to be. I'm optimistic. We're seeing a lot of younger people really getting into fishing, and that's a great thing. But we just need to keep that going.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on, man. It was I always kind of wonder where everything came from and how the industry works. And I go to my local bait shop and I ask for my stuff and it shows up, and we don't really know what happens prior to that. We don't know there's someone on the other side of that, and getting to know somebody that does that stuff is kind of neat to see where everything comes from.
Yeah, and I mentioned to you before we're actually launching our new website after I don't know how many years, and we're going to have a lot more information and stuff on what we do and where it comes from on that. So it's fun to look us up here. And it's supposed to be out this week, but we're probably another week or two out on it. Getting
That's
new one
perfect. Yeah,
launched.
this will be out in a couple of weeks. I'll tag you in all your stuff. Thanks for being on, Ben. It was an awesome
Yeah.
conversation. And that concludes another episode of Walleye Chronicles. Hey, if you can do me one favor, wherever you're listening, can you hit that like and subscribe button? It actually really does help in the long run. And if you know somebody or want to be on an episode of Walleye Chronicles, hit me up on my socials at Matt Snell on Facebook or on Instagram, or Smile and Fish on the TikTok. And keep your eye out. Early 2026 merch. It's coming, everybody. So thanks a lot again for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.